happiness is being satisfied with what you have. Success comes from dissatisfaction. Is success worth it then?
Oof. I'm not sure that statement is true anymore. Like, I made that statement a long time ago. And a lot of these things are just notes to myself, and they're highly contextual. They come in the moment, they leave in the moment. Happiness, okay, so very complicated topic, but I always like the Socrates story where he goes into the marketplace and they show him all these luxuries and fineries, and he says, how many things there are in this world that I do not want, right? And that's a form of freedom. So not wanting something is as good as having it. In the old story with Alexander Dionysius, right? Alexander goes out and conquers the world, and he meets Dionysius who's living in a barrel, and Dionysius says, get out of the way, you're blocking my sun. And Alexander says, oh, how I wish I, could be like Dionysius in the next life. And Dionysius says, that's the difference. I don't wish that I could, Diogenes. Diogenes says, I don't wish to be Alexander. So two paths to happiness, and one path is to success. You get what you want, you satisfy your material needs, or like Diogenes, you just don't want it in the first place. And I'm not sure which one is more valid. And it also depends what you define as success. If the end goal is happiness, then why not cut to the chase and just go straight for it? Does being happy make you less successful? That is a conventional wisdom. That may even be the practical earned experience of your reality. You find that when you're happy, you don't want anything, so you don't get up and do anything. On the other hand, you still got to do something. You're an animal. You're here to survive. You're here to replicate. You're driven. You're motivated. You're going to do something. You're not just going to sit there all day. Unlikely. Some people do. Maybe it's in their nature. But I think most people still want to act. They want to live in the arena. I found for myself, as I've become, happier is a big word, but more peaceful, more calm, more present, more satisfied with what I have. I still want to do things. I just want to do bigger things. I want to do things that are more pure, more aligned with what I think needs to be done and what I can uniquely do. So in that sense, I think that being happier can actually make you more successful, but your definition of success will likely change along the way.
Is that a realization you think you could have gotten to had you have not had some success in the first place?
At least for me, I always wanted to take the path of material success first. I was not going to go be an ascetic and sit there and renounce everything. That just seems too unrealistic and too painful. In the story of Buddha, he starts out as a prince. And then he sees that it's all kind of meaningless because you're still going to get old and die. And then he goes into the woods looking for something more. I'll take the happy route that involves material success. Thank you.
I think it's quicker. In some ways, one of your insights is it's far easier to achieve our material desires than it is to renounce them. And
it depends on the person, but I think you have to try that path. If you want something, go get it. Like I quip that the reason to win the game is to be free of it. So you play the games, you win the games, and then hopefully you get bored of the games. You don't want to just keep looping on the same game over and over, although a lot of these games are very enticing and have many levels and are relatively open-ended. And then you become free of the game in the sense that you're no longer trying to win it. You know you can win it. And either you move to a different game or you play the game for
another one of yours, most of the gains in life come from suffering in the short term so you can get paid in the long term. I think
that's classic.
Winning the marshmallow test on a daily basis. But there's an interesting challenge where I think people need to avoid becoming a suffering addict, sort of using suffering as the proxy for progress as opposed to the outcome of the suffering, right? It's like I was in pain not eating the marshmallow. I was in pain doing this work. I have attached well-being and satisfaction to pain, not to what the pain gets me on the other side of it.
If you define pain as physical pain, then it's a real thing. It happens and you can't ignore it. But that's not what we mean by suffering. Suffering is mostly mental anguish and mental pain. And it just means you don't want to do the task at hand. If you were fine doing the task at hand, then you wouldn't be suffering. And then the question is, what's more effective, to suffer along the way or just to interpret it in a way that is not suffering? You hear from a lot of successful people, they look back and they say, oh, the journey was the fun part, right? That was actually the entertaining part and I should have enjoyed it more. It's a common regret. There's a little thought exercise I like to do, which is you can go back into your own life and try to put yourself in the exact position you were in 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and you try to remember, okay, who was I with? What was I doing? What was I feeling? What were my emotions? What were my objectives? And really, really try to transport yourself back and see if there's any advice you'd give yourself, anything you'd do differently. Now, you don't have new information. Don't pretend you could have gone back and, bought a stock or bought Bitcoin or whatever. But just knowing what you know now in terms of your temperament and a little bit of age-related experience, how would you have done things differently? And I think it's a worthwhile exercise to do. So don't let me rob you of the conclusion. But I'll tell you, for me, I would have done everything the same, except I would have done it with less anger, less emotion, less internal suffering, because that was optional. It wasn't necessary. And I would argue that someone who can do the job at least peacefully, but maybe happily, is going to be more effective than someone who has unnecessary emotional turmoil.
Well, you end up with a series of miserable successes, right? The outcome may have been the same, but the entire experience of getting there.
And the journey is not only the reward, the journey is the only thing there is. Even success, it's human nature to bank it very, very quickly, right? Because the normal loop that we run through is you sit around, you're bored, then you want something. Then when you want something, you decide you're not going to be happy until you get that thing. Then you start your bout of suffering or anticipation while you strive to get that thing. If you get that thing, then you get used to it. And then you get bored again. Then a few months later, you want something else. And if you don't get it, then you're unhappy for a bit. And then you get over it. And then you want something else, right? That's the normal cycle. So whether you're happy or unhappy at the end, it tends not to last. Now, I don't want to be glib and say that, there's no point in making money or being successful. There absolutely is. Money solves all your money problems. So it is good to have money. That said, there are those stories. I don't know if you've seen those studies. I don't know how real these are. A lot of these psych studies don't replicate, but it's a fun little study that shows that people who break their back and people who win the lottery are back to their baseline happiness 2 years later.
Yep.
Again, I don't know if that's entirely true. I think money can buy you happiness if you earned it, because then along the way, you have both pride and confidence in yourself, and you have a sense of accomplishment, and you set out to do something and you were right. So I'll bet that lingers. And then, as I said, money solves your money problem. So I don't want to be too glib about it, but I would say in general, this loop that we run through of desire, dopamine, fulfillment, unfulfillment, like you have to enjoy the journey. The journey is all there is, right? 99% of your time is spent on the journey. So what kind of a journey is it if you're not going to enjoy it?
How do you shortcut that desire contract?
You could focus, you could decide that I don't want most things. I think we have a lot of unnecessary desires that we just pick up everywhere. We have opinions on everything, judgments on everything. So I think just knowing that those are the source of unhappiness will make you be choosy about your desires. And frankly, if you want to be successful, you have to be choosy about your desires. You have to focus.
You can't be great at everything.
You can't be great at everything. You're just going to waste your energy and waste your time.
Is fame a worthwhile goal?
It gets you invited to better parties, gets you into better restaurants. Fame. So fame is this funny thing where a lot of people know you, but you don't know them. And it does get you put on a pedestal. It can get you what you want at a distance. So I wouldn't say it's worthless. Obviously, people want it for a reason. It's high status, so it attracts the opposite sex, especially for men, it attracts women. That said, it is high cost. It means you have no privacy. You do have weirdos and lunatics. You do get hit up a lot for weird things. And you're on a stage, so you're forced to perform. So you're forced to be consistent with your past proclamations and actions, and you're going to have haters and all that nonsense. But the fact that we do it, the fact that we all seem to want it, means that it would be disingenuous to say, oh, no, I'm famous, but you don't want to be famous. That said, I think fame, like anything else, is best produced or pursued as a byproduct of something potentially more worthwhile. Wanting to be famous and craving to be famous and being famous for being famous, these are sort of traps.
Fame for fame's sake.
Yeah, exactly. So it's better that it's earned fame. So, for example, earn respect in the tribe is you do things that are good for the tribe. Who are the most famous people in human history? They're there are people who sort of transcended the self, the Buddhas and the Jesuses and the Muhammads of the world. Who else is famous? The artists are famous. Art lasts for a long time. The scientists are famous. They discover things. The conquerors are famous, presumably because they conquered for their tribe. There was someone that they were fighting for. So generally, the higher up you rise by doing things for greater and greater groups of people, even though it may be considered tyrannical or negative. Like, Genghis Khan is famous, but to the Mongols, he was doing good. To the rest of them, not so much. The higher level you're operating at, the more people you're taking care of, the more you sort of earn respect and fame. And I think those are good reasons to be famous. If fame is empty, if you're famous just because your name showed up in a lot of places or your face showed up in a lot of places, then that's a hollow fame. And I think deep down you will know that. And so it'll be fragile and you'll always be afraid of losing it. And then you'll be forced to perform. Mm-hmm. So the kind of fame that pure actors and celebrities have, I wouldn't want. But the kind of fame that's earned because you did something useful, why dodge that? No, you can't.
There's a challenge, I think, especially if people make very loud public proclamations about things. You mentioned there about you're almost a hostage to the things that you used to say, that being able to update your opinions and change your mind looks very similar to the internet as hypocrisy does. No, the difference between me saying something in the past and saying something different now is perhaps I've learned, perhaps I've updated my beliefs, right. But so few people do it in a legitimate way. I think that the grifter shill, you see, this is the smoking gun that shows that he didn't really believe that thing all along. Right. And I went to a retreat in LA a couple of years ago, and there was a guy that I used to follow, that a big business and productivity advice content creator, really, really successful. And he just totally stepped back from everything and went like monk mode and focused on his business. I asked him why, and he said, I started feeling like I had to live up to in private the things that I was saying in public.
Right. Yeah, it's a what was it that who said it? Was it Mencken that foolish consistency is a hobgoblin of little minds, right? But essentially, look, all learning is error correction, right? Every knowledge creation system works through correcting errors, making guesses and correcting errors. So by definition, if you're learning, you're going to be wrong most of the time, and you'll be updating your priors. And so, for example, I did this Joe Rogan podcast, I don't know, it's like 8 or 9 years ago. And people will call out like the one thing that didn't turn out to be correct, right? And it's just like, and they just beat on it because it helps them in their mind raise their status a little bit. Aha, I caught him in an error. Well, I think if you catch someone in a blatant lie where they believe one thing and they say another, that's legit. That's a character flaw. They shouldn't be lying. But on the other hand, if they just made a guess at something and they got it wrong, and by the way, mostly it's about the AI AGI thing, and I think I'm still right about that, but it's a different story. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. People who think we have achieved AGI just fail a Turing test from their side. But it's funny how people latch on to single proclamations. But the reality is all of us are dynamical systems. We're always changing. We're always learning. We're always growing. And hopefully we're correcting errors. What you don't want to be doing is lying in public because you're trying to look good. And I think people can smell that. What this world really lacks right now is authenticity. And because everybody wants something, they want to be seen as something, they want to be something that they're not. And so you do catch a lot of people saying things that they don't really believe. And I think people are very sensitive to that.
Bullshit radars have become hypersensitized to try and work out whether or not this person means the thing that they're saying.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are wrong. Most of us are wrong most of the time, especially in any new endeavor.
Difference between being wrong and disingenuous, though.
Correct.
Purposefully wrong.
Correct. Exactly. So I think that's the big difference. If someone is wrong, no big deal, as long as they have a genuine reason for saying what they're saying, for believing what they're believing. But if they are lying to elevate their status or their appearance or to live up to some expectation, that's the mistake. And that's a mistake not just for the listener, it's a mistake for themselves, because then you're going to get trapped in a hall of mirrors. You yourself are going to be consistent with your past proclamations. So if you're lying to others, you're going to be lying to yourself.
You're puppeted by a person that you are not even.
That's right. Yeah, it's like what was that line? You're basically trying to impress people who don't care about you.
They don't like the real you, and if they saw the real you, they wouldn't care. And the people who would like the real you don't get to see the real you, so they pass you by.
Right. You only want the respect of the very, very few people that you respect. Trying to demand respect from the masses is a fool's errand.
Status games, the allure of accruing, whether it's fame, actual fame, or just the competition comparison trap, it's always there. There's a real draw of being swayed by social approval. How should people learn to get less distracted by status games in that way?
I think it just helps to see that status games don't matter as much as they used to. In old society, let's go back hunter-gatherer times, there was no such thing as wealth. You just had what you could carry. There was no stored wealth. So wealth games didn't really exist, wealth creation games. All that existed was status games. If you were high status, then you got what little was available first. But even back then, you had to earn your status by taking care of the tribe. Now we have wealth creation, where you can actually create a product or a service. You can scale that product or service, and you can provide abundance for a lot of people. And that's not zero sum. That's a positive sum game. I can be wealthy. You can be wealthy. We can create things together. And clearly, since we are all collectively far, far wealthier than we were in hunter-gatherer times, wealth creation is positive. But status is limited. There's limited status to go around. It's a ranking ladder. It's a hierarchy. And so to rise in status, somebody else has to lower in status. Now, you can have multiple kinds of status, so you can expand some kinds of status, but it's not like wealth creation where it can go infinitely, where we can all be, living in the stars and moon bases or Mars colonies or what have you. So just realize that status games are inherently limited. They're always combative. They always require direct combat, whereas wealth creation games can be just you're creating products. You don't have to fight anybody else. Yes, in the marketplace, your product has to succeed, but that's not quite the same as invective against other people or being angry with other people or feeling pushed down or pushed up or having a beef with somebody. So I would argue that wealth creation games are both more pleasant. They're positive sum, and they actually have concrete material returns. If you have more money, you can buy more things.
Show me where you can exchange your status at the bank.
Exactly. Yeah, it's vague and it's fuzzy. Now, you see people get rich. They have money. What do they want? They want status. So they go to Hollywood, start starring in movies. They donate to nonprofits. They go to Cannes or Davos or what have you. And they start trying to trade the money for status. So, people always want what they don't have. And we are evolutionarily hardwired for status because, as I said, wealth creation didn't really exist until the agricultural revolution, when you could store grain, and then the industrial revolution took it to another level, and now the information age is taking it to yet another level. But there's never been an easier time to make money. Yes, it's still hard, but there's never been an easier time to create wealth because there's so much leverage out there. There's so much opportunity. You still have to go find it. It's not easy. It's not going to fall on your lap, and you have to learn something and know something and do something interesting. But nevertheless, it's possible to many more people. A few hundred years ago, you were born a serf, you were going to die a serf. There was almost no way out of that. That's changed. And so I would argue that you're better off focusing on wealth games and status games. If you're trying to build up, for example, your following on a social network and get famous and then get rich off of being famous, that's a much harder path than getting rich first. And then go for your fame afterwards would be my advice.
The worst outcome in the world is not having self-esteem. Why?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Well, I look at the people, and I don't want to offend anybody, but I look at the people who don't like themselves, and that's the toughest slot because they're always wrestling with themselves, and it's hard enough to face the outside world, and no one's going to like you more than you like yourself. So if you're struggling with yourself, then the outside world becomes an insurmountable challenge. And it's hard to say why people have low self-esteem. It might be genetic. It might just be circumstantial. A lot of times I think it's because they just weren't unconditionally loved as a child. And that sort of seeps in at a deep core level. But self-esteem issues can be the most limiting. One interesting thought is that, to some extent, self-esteem is a reputation you have with yourself. You're watching yourself at all times. You know what you're doing, and you have your own moral code. Everyone has a different moral code. But if you don't live up to your own moral code, the same code that you hold others to, it will damage your self-esteem. So perhaps one way to build up your self-esteem is to live up to your own code very rigorously. Have one and then live up to it. Another way to raise your self-esteem might be to do things for others. If I look back on my life and, what are the moments that I'm actually proud of? There's very far and few between. And it's not that often. And it's not the things you would expect. It's not the material success. It's not having learned this thing or that. It's when I made a sacrifice for somebody or something that I loved. And that's when I'm actually, ironically, most proud. Now, that's through an explicit mental exercise, but I'll bet you at some level I'm recording that implicitly. So that tells me that even if I am not being loved, then the way to create love is to give love, to express love through sacrifice and through duty. And so I think doing things like that can build up your self-esteem really fast.
It's interesting when you talk about sacrifice, because a lot of the time people say, well, I sacrificed so much for my job. It's like, yeah, but that was you sacrificing something that you wanted less for something that you wanted more, as opposed to genuinely taking some sort of cost. And I wonder whether if self-esteem is you adhering to your internal, your actions and your values aligning, even when it's difficult, or perhaps even more so when it's difficult, I wonder whether there is a price that people who are more introspective, high integrity, pay, because you think, well, you've got this heavier set of overheads that you need to pay in some way.
Well, if being ethical were profitable, everybody would do it, right? So at some level, it does involve a sacrifice. But that sacrifice can also be thought of as you're thinking for the long term rather than the short term. For example, the virtues are the set of virtues is a set of beliefs that if everybody in society followed them as individuals, it would lead to win-win outcomes for everybody. So if I am honest and you are honest, then we can do business more easily. We can interact more easily because we can trust each other. So even though there might be a few liars in the system, as long as there aren't too many liars and too many cheaters, a high-trust society where everybody's honest is better off. And I think a lot of the virtues work this way, right? If I don't go around sleeping with your wife and you don't sleep with mine, and if I don't take all the food that's at the table first and so on, then we all get along better and we can play win-win games. In game theory, the most famous game is Prisoner's Dilemma, but that's all about everybody cheating. In the Nash equilibrium, the stable equilibrium, there is everybody cheats. And the only way you can play a win-win game is if you have long-term iterated moves. But that's not actually the most common game played in society. The most common game played is one called a stag's hunt, where if we cooperate, we can bring down a big stag and both have big dinners. But if we don't cooperate, then we have to go hunt like rabbits and we each have small dinners. So most of, and that game has two stable equilibriums. And one could be where we're both hunting the rabbit, and one could be where we're hunting the stag. So the high trust society is a more virtuous society where I can trust you to come hunt the stag with me and show up on time and do the work and divide it up properly. So you want to live in a system where everybody has their own set of virtues and follows them, and then we all win. But I would argue you don't need to do that for sacrifice. You don't need to do that for other people. You can do it just purely for yourself. You will have higher self-esteem. You will attract other high virtue people.
Would I go on a stag hunt with me?
Correct. Yeah, that's right. And if you're the kind of person who long-term signals ethics and virtues, then you'll attract other people who are ethical and virtuous. Whereas if you are a shark, you will eventually find yourself swimming entirely amongst sharks, and that's an unpleasant existence. But again, this goes back to the equivalent of the marshmallow test. And by the way, the marshmallow test does not replicate.
I saw it got replication crisis hard recently.
But it is about trading off the short term for the long term. And so I think for a lot of these so-called virtues, there are long-term selfish reasons to be virtuous.
This is related to another insight of yours. The less you want something, the less you're thinking about it, the less you're obsessing over it, the more you're going to do it in a natural way. The more you're going to do it for yourself, you're going to do it in a way that you're good at, and you're going to stick with it. The people around you will see the quality of your work is higher. But this seems like a difficult tension to navigate because an obsessive attention to detail is a competitive advantage of your work as well. So you have these two things sort of conflicting with each other.
No one is going to beat you at being you. One of the things I like to say is find what feels like play to you, but looks like work to others. So it looks like work to them, but to you it feels like play. It's not work. So you're going to outcompete them because you're doing it effortlessly. You're doing it for fun. They're doing it for work. They're doing it for some byproduct. To you, it's art, it's beauty, it's joy, it's flow, it's fulfilling. You must enjoy podcasting. If you didn't, you wouldn't be good at it.
You would have done 900 episodes either. Yeah.
Right. If you decided that the right way to get ahead in life was to go write books, nobody would have heard of you. Chris Williamson's book would be a complete flop. That's not who you are. You're a podcaster. You enjoy talking to people. You enjoy interviewing them. The more you do things that are natural to you, the less competition you have. You escape competition through authenticity by being your own self. If I had to summarize how to be successful in life in 2 words, I would just say productize yourself. That's it. Just figure out what it is that you naturally do that the world might want, that you can scale up and turn into a product. And it'll eventually be effortless for you. Yes, there's always work required, but it won't even feel like work to you. It'll feel like play to you. And modern society gives us that opportunity. If you were 2,000 years ago, you're born on a farm, your choices are very limited, right? You're going to do stuff on that farm. Now you can literally wake up and you can move to a different city. You can switch careers. You can switch jobs. You can change the people that you're with. You can change so many things about who you are and who you're with and what you're doing, that there is infinite opportunity out there for you, literally infinite. And so it's much better to treat this like a search function, to find the people who need you the most, to find the work that needs you the most, to find the place you're best suited to be at. And it's worthwhile to spend time in that exploration before diving into exploitation. The biggest mistake in a world with so many choices is premature commitment. If you prematurely commit to being a lawyer or a doctor, and now you've got 5 years invested into that, you might have just completely missed. You might just end up in the wrong profession, the wrong place, the wrong people for 30 years of your life grinding away. And yes, the best time to figure that out was before, but the second best time is now. So just change it.
And also presumably kill things that aren't working very quickly.
By default, you should kill everything. If you can't decide, the answer is no. And most things you should just be saying no to. The part of my keeping my calendar free is just by default saying no to everything. Do I want to create a calendar just to add your event, right? Or to add your need or your desire? One of the other things about, early on in life, you're looking for opportunities. So you're saying yes to everything. And that is a phase that you go through. That is the exploration phase.
That not registering it emotionally thing, is that
It's fundamental. That's so fundamental to so many things in life.
Okay. Can we dig into that a little bit? Is it, because again, I've only seen you as you, right? I didn't know you 20 years ago. I didn't know you as a child. So I've only seen you with this holistic selfishness, the integrated self-prioritization, whatever I don't know what we called it.
Selfish is fine. I'll take selfish. I'm
Holistic.
selfish. I'm a very selfish person. Don't contact me.
That emotional reaction. I also get the sense too that maybe people have lived obligation life for so long that they actually kind of struggle to tap into what it is that they want. They've hidden their wants and their desires and their needs, and they've deprioritized themselves so much for so long. They go, what do I want? Actually, what is it? Do I want to go to this thing or not? Because all I've done is be fucking puppeted, right? I've been marionetted by other people's desires for so long. I can't even tap into that anymore. And saying no feels like a war crime.
So I think it's really good to be able to view your own mind and your own thoughts objectively. And that is the big benefit of meditation. It creates a small gap between your conscious observation self and your mind. And that lets you then look at your thoughts and evaluate them a little bit like you would a third party's statements. And if you just take your mind to be you and they're integrated in one and the same at all times and you're reacting from the mind, then you're not even going to question things that come into your mind. Anything that comes in that creates a reaction will immediately create a reaction. But if you can observe your thoughts a little bit, and not in some woo-woo way, but you can even just do it through therapy, you can do it through journaling, you can do it any way you would like. You can just take long walks. You don't have to meditate and do lotus position. All that is unnecessary. But if you can observe your own thoughts and view them a little objectively, then you can start being a little more choosy, a little more critical, and you can realize that there are no problems in the real world other than maybe things that inflict pain on your body. Everything else has to become a problem in your mind first. You have to view it and interpret it and create a narrative that it is a problem before it becomes a problem. And then you realize that a lot of your emotional energy is spent on reacting to things that your mind is automatically saying are problems. And you don't need all those problems. Do you really need that many problems in your life? Again, I would say try to focus on just one overarching problem and then go solve that problem. It's like if you want to be successful, define success very concretely, focus on that, and everything else, when it enters your mind, it becomes a problem, whether it's a judgment about the girl walking down the street or the car that just cut in front of you, or whether it's like, your accountant did this stupid thing. Like, yes, it's going to trigger you, but observe for a moment that like it's triggering me. I've created a problem. Do I really want to have this problem right now? Do I want to spend the energy on this problem, or do I want that going somewhere else? And it doesn't have to be that overt.
You mentioned anxiety before. Imagine how effective you'd be if you weren't anxious all the time. Is one of yours, and anxiety is the emotion du jour of the 21st century, and lots of driven people. Very anxious, very paranoid. That's what's caused them to be effective. They pay so much attention, detail-oriented, not letting things go, staying up at night, thinking about it. That's the paranoia coming in. What have you come to learn about anxiety and dealing with it?
So anxiety and stress are interesting. They're very related. Stress is when, like if you look at an iron beam, when an iron beam is under stress, it's because it's being bent in two different directions at the same time. So when your mind is under stress, it's because it has two conflicting desires at once. So for example, you want to be liked, but you want to do something selfish, and you can't reconcile the two. And so you're under stress. You want to do something for somebody else. You want to do something for yourself, right? These are examples. You don't want to go to work, but you want to make money. So you're under stress, right? So you have two conflicting desires. And I think one of the ways to get through stress is to acknowledge that, oh, I actually have two conflicting desires. And either I need to resolve it, I need to pick one and then be okay losing the other, or I will decide later. But at least just being aware of why you're stressed can help alleviate a lot of stress. And then anxiety, I think, is sort of this pervasive, unidentifiable stress where you're just kind of stressed out all the time and you're not even sure why. And you can't even identify the underlying problem. And I think the reason for that is because you have so many unresolved problems, unresolved stress points that have piled up in your life that you can no longer identify what the problem is. Enjoy it. Make the best of it. It's even briefer than that. Each moment just disappears. It's gone. There's only a present moment, and it's gone instantly. So if you're not there for it, if you're stressed out or you're anxious or you're thinking about something else, you missed it. So any moment when you're not in that moment, you are dead to that moment. You might as well be dead because your mind is off doing something else, or living in some imagined reality that is just a very poor substitute for the actual reality. So one of my recent realizations was, what is wasted time? What is a waste of time? So I don't like to waste time, but what is wasted time? And everything is wasted time in a sense because nothing matters in the ultimate. But in each moment, the thing matters. In each moment, it's the only thing that matters, actually. What's happening in front of you literally has all the meaning in the world. And so what matters is just being present for the thing. So if you're doing something that you want to do and you're fully there for it, then it's not wasted time. If you don't want to do it and your mind is running away from it and you're reacting against it and you're wishing you were somewhere else and you're thinking about some other thing, or you're anticipating some future thing, or regretting some past thing, or being fearful of something, then that's wasted time. That's time that's being wasted when you're not actually present for the reality in front of you. So my definition of wasted time, yes, I do want some material things in life, and there are things that have more value than others within this life, but this life is very short and bounded. So the true wasted time is a time that you're not present for, when you're not there for it, when you're not doing the thing you want to do to the best of your capabilities such that you're immersed in it. If you're not immersed in this moment, then you're wasting your time.
People get worried about dying and no longer being here, but they don't realize that so much of their life is spent not being here in any case.
That's right. And I think people crave being here for it. And when you're here for it, you're actually not thinking about yourself. You are more immersed in the thing, the moment, the task at hand.
We don't want peace of mind. We want peace from mind.
That's right.
Yeah, I think, so much of what we've spoken about today is on the shortness of life and the fact that every moment is precious. You had to take about the most fundamental resource in your life is not time, it's attention.
That's right. I used to think, the currency of life, right? People think it's money. And yes, money is important, and it does let you trade certain things for time, but it doesn't really buy you time. Ask Warren Buffett how much time money can buy you, or Michael Bloomberg. They're, rich as Scrooge and Croesus, but they can't buy more time. right? Brian Johnson notwithstanding. So you can't trade money for time. Money is not the real currency of life. And time itself doesn't even mean that much because, as we talked about before, a lot of time can be wasted because you're not really present for it. You're not paying attention. So the real currency of life is attention. It's what you...
We think we can't change ourselves, but we can. We think we can change other people, but we can't.
Exactly. Another thing to add to that, you can't change other people. You can change your reaction to them. You can change yourself. But other people only change through trauma or their own insight on their own schedule, and never in a way that you like.
Yeah, Alain de Botton says that people do sometimes change, but rarely in relationships and never when they're told to.
Absolutely. Yeah, the fastest way to kind of alienate somebody is to tell them to change. In fact, the Dale Carnegie School of Public Speaking, the way that operates is they get you up there and they realize that the number one problem with public speaking is that people are very self-conscious. And so people who are practicing in the Dale Carnegie School of Public Speaking, I don't know, I never went through it. I heard this secondhand, so I could be wrong, but I like the story, where they get up and they start speaking and the people in the audience are only allowed to compliment them. Genuine compliments, not fake compliments, on things that they did well. But you're not allowed to criticize them on things that they did poorly. And eventually they kind of get through it and they develop self-confidence. The same way, there's like the Michel Thomas School of Language Learning. And on that one, what they do is you listen to a teacher talking to a student. They're not teaching you. You're not expected to remember or memorize anything. You just listen to a student stumbling over the language. And it's a better way to learn because you yourself don't feel flustered. You're being tested, graded.
Oh, so you're
examined.
not in your own head as much.
Correct. You're not in your own head, and you might even be laughing at the student, or you might be agreeing with the teacher, or vice versa, or sympathizing with the student. But because you are a passive observer, you can be more objective about it, and you aren't threatened or fearful, and you can learn better. And coming back to the original point of you can't change people, if you do want to change someone's behavior, I think the only effective way to do it is to compliment them when they do something you want, not to...
Positive reinforcement.
Yeah, exactly. Not to insult them or be negative or critical when they do something you don't want. And we can't help it. It's obviously in our nature to criticize, and I do it as well. But it just reminds me that, like, when somebody does something praiseworthy, don't forget to praise them. Like, definitely go out of your way to praise. And it'll be genuine. It has to be genuine. It can't be a fake thing. This is not, one of those just dropping compliments type thing. Eventually that people will see through that. They want authenticity. But just don't forget to praise people when they do something praiseworthy, and you'll get more of that behavior.
There was a really famous thread on Reddit about 5 questions to ask yourself if you're uncertain about your relationship. One of the questions was, are you truly in love with your partner, or just their potential or the idea of them? And that's they show such great promise. They look at their ability for change and growth. They're on the right path.
The partner matching thing is so hard. When people come and ask me, like, oh, should I be with this person? I'm like, well, if you're asking me, the answer is clearly no, right? Because you wouldn't have to ask if you were with the right person. Or when you ask someone, like, why they're in a relationship with somebody and they start reading out his or her resume, right? That's also a bad sign. Like,
what do you mean?
Oh, it's like, oh, we have so much in common. We like to golf together. It's like, it's not a basis for a relationship. Or, oh, she's a ballerina, or, he went to Harvard, or what have you. These are resume items. That's not who the person actually is.
What's a better answer?
I just love being with this person. I just trust them. I enjoy being around them. I love how capable he is. I love how kind she is. I love her spirit. I love his energy. The more materially and concretely definable the reasons are you're together, the worse they are.
The ineffable is actually where the sort of true love lies.
Because real love is a form of unity. It's a form of connection. It's connecting spirits. Oh, you too? My consciousness meets your consciousness. It's the underlying drive in love, in art, in science, in mysticism is the desire for unity. It's a desire for connection. As Borges famously wrote, in every human, there's a sense that something infinite has been lost. There's a God-shaped hole in you you're trying to fill. And so we're always trying to find that connection. Love is trying to find it in one other person and saying, okay, you're male, I'm female, or whatever. And whatever your predilections are, and now we connect. Now we form a whole, a connected whole. Or in mysticism, it's like it's all about, okay, sit down, meditate, and you'll feel the whole. In science, it's like, atoms bouncing is mechanics, but that generates heat. So thermodynamics and motion or kinetics are one combined theory. That's a whole. Electricity and magnetism are one thing. That's the whole. Creates that sense of awe. In art, it's like I feel an emotion, I create a piece of art around it, and then you see that painting, or you see the Sistine Chapel, or you read the poem, and you feel that emotion. So again, it's creating unity, it's creating connection, and I think everybody craves that.
If you're faced with a difficult choice and you cannot decide, the answer is no, and the reason is modern society is full of options.
Yeah,
knowing this rationally sounds great, but having the courage to commit to it in reality, I think, is a different task. And cutting your losses quickly in the big three, relationships, jobs, and locations, is hard. What would you say to someone who may cerebrally be able to agree with you and say, I understand the answer is no?
My cousin said this about me. He said that, what I really notice about you is your ability to walk away from situations that are just not great enough for you or not good enough for you.
Yes.
And I think that is a characteristic that I have. I will not accept second best outcomes in my life. Ultimately, you will end up wherever is acceptable to you. You will get out of life whatever is acceptable to you. And there are certain things to me that are very, very important where I will not settle for second best. But then there are a lot of other things I just don't care about. Because if I spend all my time caring about those things, I don't have the energy for the few things that matter. And so in decision making, I have a few heuristics for myself. Other people can use their own, but mine are, if you can't decide, the answer is no. If you're offered an opportunity, if you have a new thing that you're saying yes or no to that is a change from where you're starting, the answer is by default always no. Secondly, if you have two decisions, if you have A or B, and both seem like very equal, take the path that's more painful in the short term, the one that's going to be painful immediately, because your brain is always trying to avoid pain. So any pain that is imminent, it is going to treat as much larger than it actually is.
This is kind of like a decision-making equivalent of Taleb's surgeon.
Taleb's surgeon, where you want the surgeon that doesn't look as good because he's more likely to be a good surgeon. Yeah, it's similar in that appearances are deceiving because you're avoiding conflict, you're avoiding pain. So take the path that is more painful in the short term, because your brain is creating this illusion that the short-term pain is greater than the long-term pain. Because long-term, you'll commit your future self to all kinds of long-term pain.
Mañana.
Exactly, mañana. So take the more short-term painful one. And then finally, the last one, which I would credit Kapil Gupta with, is that you want to take the choice that will leave you more equanimous in the long term. By equanimous, he means like more at peace, more mental peace in the long term. So whatever clears your mind more and will have you having less self-talk in the future, if you can model that out, that is probably the better route to go. And then I would focus decision-making down on the three things that really matter, because everything else is downstream of these three decisions. Especially, these are early life decisions. Later in life, you have different things to optimize for. But early in life, you're trying to figure out who you're with, what you're doing, and where you live. And I think on all three of those, you want to think pretty hard about it. And people do some of these unconsciously. Who you're with, very often it's like, well, we were in a relationship, we stumbled along, it felt okay, it had been enough time, so we got married, right? Not great reasons. Maybe not terrible reasons either. I mean, it's people who overthink these things sometimes don't get the right answer, but maybe here, if you're the kind of person that's not going to settle for second best, you iterate on a closed time frame so you don't run out the clock, and then you decide. On what you do, you try a whole bunch of different things until you find the one that feels like play to you, looks like work to others, you can't lose at it. Get some leverage, try to find some practical application of it and go into that. And then where you live is really important. I don't think people spend enough time on that one. I think people pick cities randomly based on where I went to school or where my family happened to be or where my friend was, or I visited one weekend, I really liked it. You really want to think it through, because where you live really constrains and defines your opportunities. It's going to determine your friend circle. It's going to determine your dating pool. It's going to determine your job opportunities. It's going to determine the food and air and water quality that you receive. It's going to determine your proximity to your family, which might be important as you get older and have kids. So very, very, very important decision. Weather, quality of life, how much do you stay inside or outside, how long are you going to live based on that. And I think people choose that one probably more poorly than, they put a lot less thought into that one than the other two.
Kids there, and you had a tweet that said, "I'm not convinced that declining fertility needs to be proactively fought."
I forgot that one.
You're gonna have to. I dug deep. Why?
Well, I mean, think back. Like, what was it? 30 years ago, 20 years ago, everybody was saying overpopulation of the earth is going to be a problem. Malthusian ending. We're going to have too many people, and now all of a sudden we're going to have too few people. So part of it is just the doomerism meme is always alive and well, right?
It just gets repackaged.
Yeah, we're running out of oil. We have too much oil, right? It's like the world is cooling, the world is warming. Like, there's always something to scream about the world is ending. There's no progress in technology. AI is going to blow up the world, right? So people tend to overdo in both directions. Now, what is the actual fertility problem, right? Well, people are having less kids. Are they having less kids because there's a disease? Was there a virus? Did they lose their fertility? Is it microplastics in the testicles, right? No, it's people are having less kids because they're choosing to have less kids, right? Women have gotten emancipation, independence in the workforce, and they're making more money. People don't need kids as an insurance policy, so they have less kids. Maybe they're living hedonistic lives. God bless them, right? They want to have more fun. They want to have less kids. I don't see the act of choosing to have less kids as a problem. Okay, so let's move one level up. It's because of the retirees. It's because a large percentage of the population is essentially retiring at the guaranteed age of 65 or 70, thanks to Social Security. And so they need other people to pay for it. They need more workers in the workforce. And if the workforce is shrinking, then you have a small number of people exactly who are supporting a large number of retirees. And in democracies, you can't take pensions away. The voters vote you out. So this slowly strangled the economy. So what do? Then you have a bunch of immigration, and then the whole culture changes. You end up in a low trust society, and people start fighting over limited resources, and how do you control which immigrants come in? How do you make sure that they're good taxpayers after they're in, and so on? So you end up with in kind of this trap where the low fertility rate is upstream of the downstream problems that are cultural and societal. But I'm not sure that you're going to solve that by making people have more kids. How are you going to meme them into having more kids? And I'm not even sure it's necessarily a problem, because keep in mind, you have more resources now. You have less of a burden. Now, there's a flip side where every kid is a lottery ticket and an invention. So there's some benefit to having more kids, but you can't force it. I think it'll work itself out, right? The Scott Adams has this great law, which is called the Adams law of slow-moving disasters. Okay. When disasters are very slow-moving, like peak oil or global warming or population collapse, and everyone can kind of see them coming, economics and society as a force solve them, because enough individual people has incentives to go solve them. So I don't know exactly how it gets solved, but I think it could get solved in various ways. One example could be, maybe people retire later. Maybe AI and automation and robots take care of the older people. Maybe we figure out how to have immigrants while still keeping a high trust society. We kind of put more rules around immigration that protect some of the high trust benefits. Maybe we outsource more things. Maybe we just, have more land and housing to go around. Believe me, if we were having too many kids, everyone would be complaining about how there's no housing and there's no land, right? So they'll always find something to care about. So I just don't view this as like a thing that any individual or government action is going to solve. I think economics and incentives over time will solve it. And I'm not even convinced it's like that big of a problem.
Is there anything that you do think is a
sufficient? It may be self-correcting too, which is that if there are too few kids in society, and the returns to having kids literally might just go up. It might just be easier to have
the incentive to now have a child because there's so few around. They're going to get the best job. They're going to have most opportunity.
The best resources. Like everyone's happy.
I suppose if you could come at it from a pain side, which is you look at all of the other people around who don't have kids. Let's say that pensions completely drop off, and the only way that old people are able to survive is if their children pay them some sort of stipend, like reverse, send money back up the generations. You go, okay, well, that's a pretty fucking good incentive.
That's a good incentive. I also think that people have been memed into thinking that kids make your life worse, and that's a pretty bad.
What's your experience been?
Kids make your life better in every possible way. If you want an automatic built-in meaning to life, have kids. And I think there are these bad psych studies like most psych studies, unfortunately, that say that people are unhappy when they have kids. Yeah, it's because you're catching them in the middle of changing a diaper and you're saying like, are you glad you had kids or not? Or they don't even say that. They say, are you happy or not? And they say, no, I'm not happy right now. But what they don't realize is that person has found something more important than being happy in the moment. They found meaning, and the meaning comes from kids. And if you ask parents, do you regret having kids? I think it would be 99 to 1 against, it would be, no, I don't regret having kids. I love having kids. I'm so glad I had kids. It's incredibly rare to meet a parent that regretted having children.
It's pretty good odds.
It's extremely good odds. And I think a lot of people get late into life, and then they can't admit that they didn't want kids, that they should have had kids. It's kind of late in the game. But a lot of times you see everybody who has a pet, right? And they're pushing them around in a stroller, right? What is that? That's a sublimated desire for children.
Yeah, Malcolm Collins says that having a pet is to children as using porn is to sex. He basically thinks that it's sort of a surrogate.
It's definitely in that direction.
Yeah.
And
I don't have.
I like pets. I like animals. But I don't like the idea of like neutering or spaying something and then keeping it as a prisoner in the house and having to train it. It's just, I don't want to be responsible for that.
Given that you've been thinking more about child rearing kids, what do you hope that your kids learn from their childhood?
They should just be happy and do what they want. I don't have particular goals in mind for them. I think that's another route to unhappiness. That's
different though, right? Than learn versus goals. It's not necessarily what do they want. What do you want them to want out of life? Like, what is it that you had that idea around? Your number one job as a parent is to provide unconditional love to your kids.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Right. So I can be loved, or I am loved unconditionally. Is that one of the things?
I want my kids to feel unconditionally loved, and I want them to have high self-esteem. As a consequence of that. But I don't get to choose any. All I get to choose is my output. I can output love. I can't choose what they feel. I can't choose how they behave. I can't choose what they want. I can't choose what they turn out to be.
And downstream from that, there should be freedom. There should be a degree of freedom that comes from the self-esteem, that comes from the unconditionality.
Yeah, they should make their own mistakes and learn their own lessons and have their own desires and fulfill them.
Also be captured by your own past.
Yes, you can fritter it away on anything you like.
Is there an advantage to starting out as a loser?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, because if you're a loser, then you'll want to be a winner, and then you'll develop all the characteristics that'll help you be a quote unquote winner in life. That said, I wouldn't sentence my kids to it. Like, I don't think you can artificially do that. It's sort of like, imagine that you were 300 years ago, you're born a serf, and then somehow you manage to escape off the farm and you become a landowner, and then eventually you become minor nobility and aristocrat. Are you going to put your kids back on the farm and say you're going to be a serf again? I know they all like those stories. The kids themselves like those stories because it says, I came from the school of hard knocks. My dad made me go shovel hay for a summer. It's not real. I mean, you're not going to trick them. I think all you can do is kind of cultivate an appreciation and gratitude for what you have. And the only way to do that is just evidence it yourself, right? Just show yourself how you spend money, how you respect it, what you do with it, how you take care of people, who you're responsible for. And the more resources you have, the greater the tribe you can take care of, the more of the tribe you can take care of. So when you have no resources, you're struggling to take care of yourself. And at that point, it's good to be selfish because you can't save somebody else if you can't even save yourself.
Yes.
So you take care of yourself and you become the best version of yourself. But there are too many men who are able, fit, and have some money who are doing nothing with their lives. They're just sitting at home doing nothing, just indulging in themselves. Maybe they go on dates and they get DoorDash. Like, I have no respect for that. I think there's nothing worse in society than a lazy man because he's sort of leaving it all on the table. He's leaving his potential on the table. It's bad for him. So the next thing you do is you go and you have a family and you take care of your family, you take care of that tribe. Then you take care of your extended family, you take care of your cousins, brothers, uncles, grandmothers, aunts, sisters, everybody that you can. And then if you have more resources beyond that, then you go take care of your local tribe, you take care of your people. You start trying to do some good for the world. And if you have more resources than that, you go take care of an even bigger tribe. And that's how you earn both respect and self-confidence, and you live up to your potential. So the more you have, the more is rightfully expected of you. And I think it's a good compact with society when highly capable people express and flex that capability by giving more and more and by doing more and more. And society rewards them with the one thing they can't get otherwise, which is status, right? So society should give you status in exchange for it. They should say, okay, you did a good job. You took care of more people than just yourself and just the people immediately around you. And that's what an alpha male to me is. An alpha male is not the one who gets to eat first. The alpha male eats last. The alpha male feeds everybody else first and then gets to eat last. And they do that out of their own self-respect and pride. And society rewards them by calling them an alpha and giving them status.
I wonder whether some of the pushback that we've got against rich, wealthy, powerful people is disincentivizing.
It is. Like, who was it, Zuck, who, donated money to Zuckerberg General's Hospital and they wanted to pull his name off of it. I mean, I
didn't see that, but that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that kind of stuff backfires, right? You should reward people for doing
what were you saying before? You don't just need to, in fact, actually actively avoid castigating people if you want their behavior to change when they get something wrong.
Absolutely,
look at reinforcing it when they get something right.
Correct.
It's happening at a societal level as well.
Correct. I mean, like the guys who make a lot of money and go out and buy sports teams, I wouldn't do that, right? But the one who goes out and builds a hospital or builds a rocket to take people to the moon, or rescue some astronauts, you should